So once again, thank you, John, for joining us tonight.
I'm happy to be here. I love working with your students, your client students, and looking forward to this seminar course, this writing course, I guess is more appropriate.
Let me give some background information about our company to the audience first. Right, so we are the Ivy Review. We are a course consulting company. So basically, whatever you see here, that's like the service provided, and this is actually what the college are looking for when students are applying for college. Right. So as we see here, essay is part of the important part of the admission process. So we have John. John is currently economic professor in NYU, and actually, John, do you mind to introduce yourself a little bit for tonight, first?
Sure. Right. Yeah. Well, I've always been a professor while working in other jobs as well. And now I'm an international business consultant, but I also teach at NYU and in a couple other programs. I've been teaching at NYU for 16 years now, longer than I want to think, longer than maybe some of our audience has been alive. But I've always, I've had quite a bit of experience helping students to research, students to organize their thoughts, and write good papers, good essays, and effective. And what good means is effective. So I've got a lot of experience helping students exceed their own expectations. I mean, that's always the goal, so that at the end they're pleasantly surprised how well they've done.
So as the number, right? So one of the students John coached this year for a research program was admitted to Columbia University, like one of the 100 students accepted to Columbia University for the early decision application.
Yeah, that was quite exciting news. That was quite exciting news.
Yeah, it is. Understood. Yeah, go ahead, John.
Yeah, and you know, we've coached these kind of essay competitions before, as well as for college essay writing coaching. This essay format is something I have experience teaching. I have experience writing myself, and so this is a very interesting competition that we're talking about.
So tonight we talk about like the New York Times, the ninth annual student editorial contest, right? So John, I know you worked for New York Times as journalist before. Is that right?
I'm sorry, what was that?
You worked for the New York Times as a journalist before, right?
I've had opinion pieces published, op-ed pieces published in a variety of newspapers. I used to do it quite a bit. It's a little different now in submitting them in the digital age, as when I started writing them, you literally put it in an envelope and mailed it to the newspaper. That's how old I am, but obviously that's not done anymore. But the basics, the fundamentals of writing an opinion piece has not changed. and we can talk a little bit about that tonight still.
Yes, so tonight we're going to talk about what does it mean to be the editorial writing. So for some basic information about this contest first, this is the ninth annual contest, and then students submit their paper, which is around 450 word essay in between March 2nd to April 13th. And then the result will come out in a couple of weeks. And this is actually, even this is still pretty new, only the 9th annual, but this is actually one of the most competitive writing contests in the country right now.
Right, it is a very competitive one, but those who want to compete in this should not be deterred. And I should just mildly correct you, Matt. It's not about 450 words. It's no more than 450 words. So that's the maximum, which is an important part of editorial writing, is that very short format.
So we're going to ask John a couple questions today, and then if any student or parents have any questions, please feel free to jump in or share the question in chat. Right. So I think you talked about John a little bit already. And John, why are you interested in teaching high school students? I know you've been...
yeah, that's a very good question. I've most of my experience has been teaching university level students. I did teach high school for a summer term once in Nigeria, of all places. I have done some guest teaching at various high schools in the country, usually when high school teachers were friends of mine or contacts of mine who invited me to speak. But yeah, I really think it's important that high school kids who are interested in
I think John...
Hi, did I disappear or did somebody else? I don't know. Anyway, can you still hear me?
Yes, a little bit cut off before, but right now it's okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of. I haven't had Wi-Fi in a week almost. We were hit by, yeah, it says here my connection is unstable. So I'll try to be quick and brief on each of these questions. But I think when I see a lot of first year university students, I can really tell it's so obvious which ones are best prepared or were best prepared in high school to do well in college and university. So I have that experience and sort of can bring out in high school students the kind of things they need, this kind of skills they need to develop, the kind of thinking they need to develop to do well in college early on, right from the beginning.
John, maybe it's better for to turn off the video. I think the signal may be stronger if
maybe
video.
I can help. Good idea. Let's see. How do I do that? Okay. All right. Here, that might be better. So yeah, I really do enjoy teaching high school kids. I mean, I think school level students now tend to be much more mature than they were when I was a high school student. So it's also better. It's nice to work with high school level students who are eager to develop kind of skills that they can succeed not only in college but in life. I always tell my students, writing is not, you need to be a good writer you need to be able to communicate concisely and clearly for your entire life, no matter what career or job you maybe follow. If you're a good writer, you will always stand out from the crowd.
That's right. Actually, writing, because we have some parents or some students think that like if you apply for STEM major, writing skill is not that important, which is not true.
No. Yeah. No, it's very important. I mean, you know, oral and written communication skills are really critical to do well in almost in any career, really any career. I mean, it's important to do well in high school and college as well, but beyond that. Yeah, so you know, and that's another thing. When I'm teaching college level students, you can tell immediately which ones had a lot of exposure to writing in high school and which ones did not. And the ones that did not write that much in high school have a more a bigger challenge once they start college.
Also, you can even tell the difference.
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely. But that doesn't, you know, I mean, I help them, you know, I have to work harder to help those who don't have that much experience. But yeah, it's a cumulative, lifelong learning process to be a good writer. I mean, I've been writing for decades, and I still always ask people I respect for their critique, for their feedback. It's something you continually improve all your life.
I think I have a very important term from you, like which is feedback, right? So when we write an essay, it's very important for us to get some feedback, especially from some professional people. So let me jump to the next questions. This contest or the class we're going to have is about editorial writing. So can you tell us a little bit more about what it's meant to be editorial writing and how is it different from a narrative essay or narrative writing?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, editorial writing is a unique, is a bit unique because it's also known as opinion piece writing, an opinion editorial, an op-ed. And these are very short, no more than 450 word essays that are really, you know, in most writing, you do not want to use, you don't always want to use the first person, you know, I did this, I do this, I think this. But in an editorial, it is the first person. It is I believe this, I propose this, I support this, I criticize this, right? So it's really putting yourself out there in 450 words and really taking possession of that, clearly stating that this is you, these are your thoughts, this is your proposal, you support, what you criticize, whatever it might be. And you're trying to persuade an audience to accept what you're stating. So it's really an art of persuasion, which is critical, essential part to be able to craft the words, craft the sentences that draws the audience in, has them listen, read your words, and consider what you're saying and consider agreeing with you. So it's really an art of persuasion which is an important skill in life, no matter what you're doing, to be able to persuade people in a positive way. You know, you don't want to persuade people with threats. You don't want to persuade people with shock tactics. You want to persuade them in a reasonable but forceful way that in which you state what you believe, whatever it is you're going to be writing about.
So, so am I understand correctly? So this is like we write an essay using the first person, and it's more like a persuasive essay. Is it right?
Yeah, it's really a personal essay, because you're not really, you know, the focus is the piece. You know, when I teach students writing, I always tell them that when they're researching and writing a project, that, you know, sure, you have to do the research. Sure, you have to be familiar with the subject matter experts, those who have written already about this topic, those who have researched, those who are experts about these topics. And you have to present their ideas in an interesting way in your paper, in your essay. But what's really is what the students in personal thoughts. In a normal, in the perhaps in the entertainment, in the editorial opinion piece, it's all about your opinion. That's the focus throughout, and you have to provide. You're making a convincing why people should consider and accept what it is you're proposing, what it is you're saying in your 150 words.
And
so it's different from a narrative. You're not really, you know, there may be a narrative in the background a little bit because maybe you're explaining something. You have to do research, even though it's only 450 words. There's still research. And editorial is the fundamentals of an editorial. So, you know, you have to take on. Not only is it a it's an exercise in which you're gathering information to correctly portray a certain situation, and in which you're stating your opinion about that situation. So for those who are thinking maybe someday of a journalism career, or majoring in journalism in college, or maybe working on the high school magazine or newspaper, you know, being an editorial writer is really, really important skill to have if you want to be if you want to be a journalist or have something to do with reporting events.
wow. So I know for this contest, when we want to persuade something, like for someone, students need to pick a topic, right? They need to, because the contest is about, let me go back to this. The contest is about, they need to write an opinion piece on the issue. So is it risky to talk about your own opinion about some hot issues like the Black Lives Matter, like the Asian hate crime? Is it risky to talk about that in public?
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, it depends on who your audience is, of course, but there is inherent risk that people will react very negatively, maybe with anger to what you're saying. But, you know, that's one of the things we will talk about in this seminar on how to minimize that kind of angry reaction because it's all about how you say it. It's all about, being carefully balanced in how you're saying it. And it's such an important skill in life, I mean, just in your everyday life, how do you talk to people who don't believe in getting a COVID vaccination, for example? How do you talk to them without making them angry? How do you tell them you should get a vaccine without making them angry? It's not easy. It's a challenge, and developing that skill to be able to interact with somebody who disagrees with you is part of the lessons to be learned in working on this competition.
And how can students choose a topic then? What considered to be a good topic?
A good topic, it has to be very current, right? So now it has to be very current. We're not going back in history 20 years ago or 10 years ago or even last year. The op-ed, I mean, when you submit an op-ed and hope that a newspaper will accept it and publish it, the first thing they do is look at, is this something new? Is this something that's happening right now? Or is this some topic that lots of people have written about already? Lots of people have given their opinion on it. So choosing a topic, it's important to pick something very current, current with a capital C, something that's happening right now. It's also important, it can really help to pick a topic that reflects your own personal experience. The best opinion writers, they often talk about, well, I went to the supermarket and nobody was wearing a mask, and and then this happened and that happened, and this is how I feel about it. And this is for example, I didn't have electricity here in the Hudson Valley for 4 days. I still do not have it for 6 days. And this is a very current topic, because even though, the infrastructure problems that the United States faces, particularly in light of how climate change is bringing more and more violent weather, interrupts electrical service, interrupts internet, interrupts all kinds of infrastructure. It's something I'm personally very upset about, because my house was near freezing after 4 days. I had no heat, I had no water. So I could now sit down, because it's really personal to me, and write a good opinion piece on why the United States needs to invest more money in upgrading and solidifying infrastructure in the light of the coming storms associated with climate change. So that's it's a personal issue for me. So something current and something personal are two of the paths to finding a topic.
But I think you mentioned about like a topic that maybe a lot of people talk about or may write about, right? It's a good idea to pick like a topic that is like everybody talks about, like Red Lives Matter, the COVID.
Well, there's two ways to do that. You can pick a topic that hardly anybody's writing about, and maybe that's your motivation, is that your motivation is like, well, this is a problem, and why isn't anybody talking about it? Why isn't anybody writing about it? So that's one motivation, to write an opinion piece about something like that. But the other motivation is, even if people are talking about it, even though it has a high visibility, this topic, and people are writing about it and talking about it, you may come up with a unique perspective, a different take, a different way to look at it than how conventional conversation is talking about it, right? So you can approach it that way, in a unique way, even though lots of people are talking about it, or bringing up something that nobody's talking about and you believe strongly should be talked about.
So now let's say we have the topic already, right? So how can we have a very good op-ed essay, and how can it even like win the contest? Any?
Yeah, well, that's the trick. That's the skill, is to write 450 words, you know, it is not very many words, right? So the whole skill of editorial writing, even more than, say, a college essay, which is another couple hundred words longer than that, you know, it's all about making every word count. It's all about writing the reader, it feels like you wrote a lot more, right? So that your writing is very dense. You have to choose your words carefully. You don't waste one word, right? Every word must count. And that is something, that is one of the main things we work on in this seminar for this competition, is making sure that all 450 words are being used in the maximum effectiveness possible. Because if you end up writing, you know, 30 words here and 30 words there that really aren't necessary or really aren't relevant, then you're wasting your valuable quantity of words. And, you know, that takes practice, that takes work. It's something that I've worked on all my life. You know, it's particularly as an American, you know, this is a very American, I might want to mention, a very American perspective. Americans tend to be minimalist when they're writing, speaking. So when you're writing, if you can say something in 6 words instead of 7 words, that's better. If you can say it in 5 words instead of 6 words, that's even better, right? And it's a very sort of an American approach to communication, which is, you know, kind of a minimalist approach to it. And that's exactly what one needs to learn when writing an opinion piece for a competition like this.
And I think that's right. But 450 was not a lot, but right, it's based on one page, single space. And usually because personally, when I write an essay, it's so easy to it's easy to write a lot of words than less words. So it's very important to make every single word count for an essay competition.
Right, and that's where I help, right? Because this is what I know from high school students. I mean, many of them are good potential writers, but, you know, one of the things is sort of, well, you know, avoid repetitiveness. Don't say the same thing more than once. You know, avoid being repetitious. Avoid using too many adjectives that are not necessary. You know, being able to describe things briefly and quickly, and that's something that in the seminar we work on, in which there'll be, you know, at least a couple drafts of this before it's submitted in April.
So I mean, you mentioned about the seminar we are hosting, like starting from this Saturday, and
This Saturday, right?
yeah. And so how are you going to teach this seminar? I know you mentioned some trick already. Do you want to like talk a little bit more about how you're going to teach this seminar?
Well, right. I mean, we'll start out about talking about choosing a topic. What kind of things are you personally invested in? What kind of things are you concerned about and want to voice your opinion? And one nice thing about opinion writing is that for people who tend to be more shy and have a harder time getting into a conversation or into a debate with people that do not agree with you, you can really make your opinion, learn how to do it on the written page. And so that's particularly good for people who are not necessarily like to get into big discussions with everybody on the street. Because when you're writing an opinion piece, it is for everybody on the street, and so your audience is the general, and you're trying to persuade them to change their minds or to consider your stand on the situation. So we start out talking about picking a topic, getting excited about that topic. When you're writing anything, there needs to be some passion. There needs to be some personal involvement here. Things that you care about, things that you would like to see different or changed or reformed, or calling out very bad behavior, calling out injustice, calling out unfair situations, inequality. I mean, sort of really going at something that you believe needs to be addressed. So we talk about topics. We will look at examples of op-ed pieces, and we'll look at those and see how different opinion writers craft their pieces, because different writers have different approaches. And by looking at some different opinion writers and how they write is helpful to sort of give the student an idea of the kind of style that they feel more comfortable with, because there's more than one style. And of course, it all depends on your topic. Are you writing something political? Are you writing something cultural? Are you writing about sports? Are you writing, you're going to write about, figure skating in the Olympics in China. That would be a much different opinion piece than writing about, electoral college reform in the United States, right? So the topic sort of dictates often the style of how you write this opinion piece. So we'll look at different style, different people write different opinion pieces to get an idea. And then, we'll go over basics, how you introduce it, how you conclude it, how do you research for this, what kind of evidence are you presenting in the essay between the introduction and the conclusion. How do you make sure that you're being as persuasive as possible, that you're not turning people off? The whole point is that you want people to read it from the beginning to the end. And you particularly want people who disagree with you to read it from the beginning to the end. That's a good opinion piece. It's easy to get people who say, agree with you on something, and they'll read it and say, yeah, I agree. Oh yeah, he's right, she's right. Right. That's easier. What the challenge is to get people who don't agree with you read the whole thing and say, maybe he's got a point. Maybe she's got a point. I didn't think about it like that. Well, maybe I'll have to think about it some more. Maybe they're right about this. I'm not sure. That's the reaction you ideally want to get from a good opinion piece.
Wow, that is right. It's very, I think that's the purpose of like editorial essay, right? To persuade someone, especially for the one that don't believe in your the idea before.
Right. I mean, we all say that, we have this saying, here in the United States, which is, don't preach to the choir, right? Don't, I mean, preaching to the choir doesn't get you very far. In other words, telling your opinion, making argument, people who agree with you, it's fine, but what you're proposing isn't advance your opinion. What advances your is single don't agree with you or have different perspective on the topic chosen.
John, you're a little bit cut off. I think we missed the last couple of what you said. But John, we didn't get you. I don't think we can hear what you just said.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now it's okay.
Okay. So I should more brief saying that, if you're writing and people who read it and say, yeah, absolutely, yeah, they're right, I agree. Well, that's okay, but that's not the real objective of an editorial. The real objective of an editorial is to get people who don't agree with you to consider what you said, to think twice about their opinion on something. That's the purpose of the opinion piece, an opinion.
Okay, so to be a good writer or to a good essay writer, do you look any book do you recommend? I know you read a lot.
Yeah, well, there's a couple books that I think are particularly good. Hold on, let me just get here. Right here. There's a couple books that are really good. Well, one is a book that came out just recently that's written by the former New York Times editorial head, the department head. So that might be particularly interesting since we're writing for the New York Times editorial competition. And it's so that might be particularly interesting. That's called Writing to Persuade by Trish Hall. Writing to Persuade. So it's interesting because she talks about how under her she had 12 editorial editors, and they have to read hundreds, sometimes thousands of opinion pieces that people send in, and so she has some good recommendations on how the good ones are chosen, and are actually appear in the New York Times. And I think that might also apply to the New York Times competition as well. Then there's a much shorter, sort of simple format book. It's just 60 pages long, called Writing Outstanding Opinion Pieces. Writing Outstanding Opinion Pieces Nancy Lowen, Lowen. That's kind of, for me, that's probably a little more oriented towards high school students. It's very straightforward, just 60 pages. So that might be an interesting reference as well.
So they can use this. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, there's also books that like have lots of examples of opinion pieces from different people. But you know, you get some examples in both of those books as well.
But as you said before, right? When it's very important for a writer to get some feedback about their writing. That's how they can improve.
Right. Which is really the main point of this seminar, right? Because you'll be getting lots of feedback from me, and you know, and you're gonna start with an essay, and we're gonna rework it and rework it and rework it until it's really showing what you believe in the most effective way possible, and you know, maybe you'll have a good chance of winning the competition.
So let me introduce the seminar we're going to have starting this Saturday a little bit first. So the competition will be open in March, and will close the application on April 13th. So the seminar John's going to have is on Saturday, every Saturday starting from this week until April 2nd in the morning of Saturday. That's 1.5 hours. So this is a writing course. It's impossible to have a lot of students. So this is more like a small group training camp.
Which I particularly enjoy, because you know, when I just have a small number of students, then I can really give some personal one-on-one attention. You know, if you have a big class of 20 students, it's very difficult to do that.
Yeah, that's right. That's the purpose of this training camp. Actually, we don't want to have too many students, and then John's not going to be able to like, give each student attention and give them enough good feedback. So this is going to be a small class, and after students finish this camp, they still have a little bit more than a week to edit and finish their writing for the competition.
Right, and that's important, because when I've done this before with writing competitions, then that last week, even though we don't have a class, we have time to take one last look at your final draft, one last look, making sure that it's very clear how you're going to submit it, make sure you submit it correctly, make sure you submit it on time. And so there's things to do in that last week before the deadline.
So that's the training camp. Before we go to thank you, John, for sharing today. Before we go to the Q&R, let me also introduce some of the program we have in this spring first. So we also have the AMC training camp. The AMC A and AMC 10 started already, but we have also the pre-AMC starting this Sunday. That is for the editorial is a writing contest, and the AMC is a math contest. So if anyone is student or any parents, they want the student to try to join the math competition, then the pre-AMC is actually a very good beginning in class for that. And then we also have the Python class, which have the basic Python class, and then we also have the intermediate Python class, also starting this Saturday. That is open for 6 to 11 grader. And then both our teachers are experienced, and they're both very good programmers as well. And then AP exams is coming in early May, so we also have a couple AP training camp, like AP exams review camp. So we have AP Calculus and also AP Physics, starting like at the end of February until the week before the AP exam. And then if the parents follow us in WeChat, we have our monthly SAT, PSAT mock exam, and then the mock exam for February will be next week. So if you're interested in joining us for the SAT, PSAT mock exam, you can contact our customer service in WeChat. Right. So it's 9:20 already. Let's go to Q&A and see if there's any questions from students or parents. Please feel free to jump in or ask the question in chat. About the mock exam. So we use all SAT and PSAT exam, and we are going to time you basically like a formal SAT, PSAT, and then we're going to generate a very detailed report for you after the mock exam, right? So any other questions?
I might want to add that, you know, if you don't win the competition, it's not the end of the world. If you have a good essay that you submitted to this, a good opinion piece that you submitted to the New York Times competition, that's something that you can, you know, be proud about. That is something you can share with people. That could be a writing sample for college applications. It could be a writing sample for a job internship, job or internship. It could be a good writing example. You want to be able to collect and have a number of good writing samples to share with people who may want to consider having you in their class, giving you an internship, giving you a job someday, whatever it might be. And in that case, the shorter ones, the better. No, you know, few people want to say, oh, give me a writing sample, and then you give them a 20-page paper. They want to see something short, and that's why this opinion piece is a potentially really good writing sample to have in your, you know, to have in your repertoire. You can share with people at appropriate times.
I think that's right. Because for competition, there's only a few winners. But when you have a good essay on your hand, right? So you can always submit it in your college application actually. Like Columbia, like Brown University, when you submit your college application, you can submit something called the create writing sample as a portfolio. So it's not like when you apply for art major, you can submit a portfolio. For some of the Ivy school and other top 20 school, you can submit something called creative portfolio or creative or writing portfolio. You can use the writing you have as a material in the portfolio for your college application.
Right, and that portfolio, if you have a few different things, you always want to be able to show people that you're flexible, that you can write different kinds of things. An opinion piece is one kind of writing. Then there's other kinds of writing. So the more sort of diversity you have in your writing samples in any portfolio you would submit to an Ivy League school or anywhere else, the better, right?
And I think this is more important for a student that is not applying for a STEM major, because for STEM major there are lots of different kind of like competition, like AMC, Olympia, but for people applying for non-STEM major, there are less competition, and then this editorial content is one of the best of them actually. All right. So, so John, do you mind to type the title of the book again on the chat?
In the chat?
Yes. Oh.
Let me do that. Hold on. Yeah, just see your screen now. Oh, there it is. Okay, very good.
So,
right. So,
when John is typing the title of the book, so this is the WeChat customer account we have. So if you have any questions about the class, like any class we have, or any question about maybe even cards application, please feel free to add our customer service in WeChat or give us a call or send us an email. So the first one is writing to persuade. Second one is writing outstanding opinion pieces. Great.
and you can see they're very different, right? One's a big book, 224 pages. It's, you know, goes into everything. And the short 55-page book is a much, you know, simpler, scaled down. These are the basics. This is how you do it sort of book.
But reading this book is one thing, right? As we've been talking, getting a good feedback is more important.
Right, of course. And you get the feedback, you know, getting feedback. I mean, that's what you get from me if you're going to be in this seminar. I encourage, you know, it's important to get feedback from more than just your professor or your coach. You know, you need to ask your siblings to read it. What do they think? Ask your best friend, ask your mother, ask your father, get them to you know, you want to share it and get as much feedback as you can on your writing. The more eyes that look at it, the more feedback you get, the better you can devise the draft, the better the next draft will be.
Okay, so it's 9:30 already, and if any other question, if no, then we thank you, John, for sharing today.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. I wish everyone a great rest of the evening.
And then I hope everything can go back to normal soon, John.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, John. Now we can hear you now.
You can? Yeah, I really apologize for this infrastructure problem. I'm ready to write an opinion piece about it.
Okay. So yeah, so thank you for everyone joining us today, and we wish everybody have a good night. And thank you again, John.
Yeah, and I see a few of you on Saturday already, and get started on this getting ready for this competition. We'll make it fun. You know, sport teaching philosophy has to be fun. If it's hard, you know, drudgery and boring, well, nobody wants that. We're going to make it fun. That's the whole point of learning.
That's right. And John is very good at teaching high school kids, actually.
Right. Okay, night, everyone.
All right, good night, John. Thank you so much again. Thank you everyone for joining. Good night.
Thank you.